Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give everyone just a couple minutes to hop on and we will get started. Oh, we have someone from Irmo, South Carolina. Nice, nice. Oregon. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to everyone that is just now joining. This is our first community hour of the year. So happy 2022, everyone. We're very happy to be back and virtually and hopefully in person in a couple months. We'll see. But my name is Jenny and I am the Members and Program Coordinator for Converged User Group. Again, thank you so much for being here. If you are new or not familiar with Converged User Group, we are a community focused on connecting users and prospects of Dell CI and HCI technologies and solutions. We do this in a variety of different ways, mainly through events such as this one virtually, as well as our virtual reality. And if you have not taken a look at our virtual reality events, we would love for you to join. So be on the lookout for those, as well as in-person events. We do this because we want to share best practices and ideas amongst our members. And we also have an awesome resource page that we would love for you to check out. It gives us tools to succeed for our members. We want to give you as many tools as possible. We have a lot of great events coming up this year that I will touch on at the end of the program. But mainly for this event today, I just want to give you a few things to keep in mind. We do have a Q&A, so if you have any questions that you would like to ask our awesome speakers, just put that in the Q&A and they will answer them throughout the program. As well as if you want to just contribute to any of the discussion, put that in the chat box. And in addition to that, we will have a series of polling questions, so be on the lookout for those. I believe there's 3 questions, so we would love for you to participate in those. It gives a lot of great feedback to our speakers as well as to us. And then in addition to all of that, we will be including a survey link at the very end to give feedback to Converged User Group to let us know how we did and also topics that you are interested in seeing in future events. The feedback is always appreciated. So with all of that being said, I will pass it over to David.
Thanks, Jenny. Much appreciated. Welcome and Happy New Year, everybody. Very excited to get back into this, and we've got a fantastic panel for you today. For those of you who've been watching very closely, yes, JT, the president of the Converged User Group, is not here today. Unfortunately, he was called away last minute, but we have an incredible and very serendipitous panel for you for speaking today. I am joined by Sharon Hennessy, Manager of Technology Services Operations at Parkway School District, and Julian Erber, DevOps Manager at Parkway School District. So they're going to provide some fantastic customer member perspective on our conversation, and they are veterans of the Converged User Group and veterans of the Community Hour. So welcome and thank you. And we also have Nancy Hurley, Senior Manager of HCI Product Marketing at Dell Technologies, and Bill Leslie, Senior Manager of Technical Marketing for VxRail at Dell Technologies. They're our subject matter experts today for the conversation on DevOps and infrastructure. Welcome, panel.
Thanks, Dave.
Awesome, fantastic. So before we jump right into the customer side of things, Nancy, there were some announcements from Dell yesterday regarding this topic. Could you just set the table for us, please, with what's going on right now with Dell Technologies, the announcements that came out yesterday, just get members up to speed for us, please.
Sure. And
Yep.
Thank you, David. And thank you everyone for attending. Yeah, actually, yesterday was a really big day from a launch perspective within Dell. We did a significant multi-cloud launch announcements, and by no means could we cover all of it here. There's multiple events. There's a Tech Target event. There's another Business Insider event coming up next week. If anybody wants to take a look at that, and we can talk about that later. However, Dell announced significant product offerings, new products, and just really trying to emphasize the completeness of the offering we have for multi-cloud environments. The reception on it was incredible. A lot of people may have been seeing a lot in the press or across social media. And I think one of the best quotes that came out of like ZDNet is that it really, Dell Technologies has announced a slew of updates to its multi-cloud portfolio as a company builds itself up to earning the title of being the cloud ecosystem champion. So that was great. And so, we talked about expanded Apex portfolio and a lot of the as a service capabilities that we have. Foreshadowed Project Alpine, which is all going to be about all of our storage services in the cloud or expanding storage services in the cloud. So look forward to that. And what we're going to, focus on talking about today were a lot of the discussion that we had about enabling DevOps, DevOps teams, or DevOps methodology within the organization or within customers' organizations. So the key announcement that we'd like to chat about today, if my slides will advance, were our DevOps ready platforms. So now, what are DevOps ready platforms? For the most part, everyone here on the call would be familiar with what the base of these platforms are because they are our integrated solutions, our hyper-converged infrastructure solutions, so VxRail, PowerFlex, Azure Stack HCI, as well as PowerStore X that actually enables you to run ESXi on the storage array itself. Now, what makes those platforms DevOps ready platforms? The key thing is that we have partnered with all of these hyperscalers and container orchestration vendors to bring you these fully integrated solutions to run the container orchestration together in a multi-cloud environment. So let me go into that a little bit more. The key thing to be in this category, again, it's not new products, but it's a categorization that we really wanted to emphasize, is first they have to be those integrated systems. There has to be that automation and orchestration capability built into the products. So let's take VxRail, for example. When you look at VxRail has, day 0 to day 2 automation, from automated bring up, automated, day-to-day management, full stack lifecycle management. What's the real benefit of that? It's an incredible ease of operations, right? And the idea of that is that customers that are going to be focused in on doing container orchestration, on doing, cloud native development and cloud native deployment across multiple clouds really don't want to have to focus in on managing their on-prem infrastructure. Now, we'll talk in a minute about why you would want on-prem infrastructure, but you don't really want to manage it so much. So we're really talking about this offering is built on our integrated solutions. On top of that, in order to be part of this category, it's not just that we're running those orchestration platforms. Yes, they could all run in VMs. You can run it on a server. But to be a DevOps ready platform, what we really have done is partnered with each one of these vendors to actually follow their guidelines and their implementation requirements and have gotten these products all validated with those vendors. So it's those two things together that make these DevOps ready platforms. And then the last thing I really want to talk about is like, okay, so why do we want to have these on-prem platforms when you can do all this container orchestration and everything in the cloud? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you want to have both an on-prem and public cloud or multi-cloud implementations. One, for sure, control your costs There's a lot of data out there that does really point to the fact that it can be much more cost effective to be running a lot of things on-prem, certain applications and the like. And you're also able to really control your data privacy, your corporate governance, and all of those mandates when you have more control of running things on-prem. That said, though, what you want to have is a simplified environment. And so one of the key things, again, with us partnering with all those vendors, like say in AWS EKS, is that you can run those different, you can run on-prem, you can run in the public cloud, but have a seamless interface between the two, because you have that, you're running, say, AWS EKS anywhere on-prem and in the public cloud. So you really have that simplified cloud operations. And all of that together helps you really accelerate innovation. And so it's not like I have to have my own standalone on-prem in order to meet those cost needs and those corporate governance, and then have a standalone, implementation in the public cloud. You actually have them working together, and that really helps accelerate innovation. So we were really excited about bringing all of that and just showing people the breadth of what we offer and the breadth of partnerships that we have. So with that, I'll turn it over to the folks that really talk about now how are we going to implement this.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Thanks for that update. That's really great. Folks, we're going to dive into the conversation now, but please do use the chat to ask questions. We also have the Q&A. You can use that as well. Sharon, I'll start with you and Julian. Can you give folks a little background on Parkway School District and your journey, where you've been? We met when you guys were VBlock or VX Block. You're now on VX Rail, and I think you still have you're still putting workloads on that VBlock, aren't you?
Yes, I'll let Julian talk about the infrastructure. I'll talk about Parkway.
Awesome.
So we're Parkway School District. We're a K-12 public institution in St. Louis, Missouri. We have about 18,000 students, about 2,500 employees. Of those 2,500 employees, we have 45 people that work in the tech department. Those people are spread out. So we have 20 techs in different school buildings. We have about 12 people that do help desk, general help desk, our student management product, and telecom. We have 3 people on our infrastructure team and 5 people that are developers. We move data all over the place. We write programs. We support a lot of our applications. So I'll give you a little introduction about, we do have the VBlock. We're going to put the VBlock in a offsite location so that we can do backup to the VBlock. We got to the VBlock because in 2013, we started looking at, we have servers in this rack and servers in that rack. And so it was a mess, and we couldn't ever get them updated. We couldn't get, security patches done to them fast enough. And we're like, what can we do about it? So the VBlock made sense to us at the time, because it's like, we now have one throat to choke, Dell. I don't have to call this person at HP and this person at the other vendor, that person at the other vendor. And then as the VBlock went out of warranty and service, what do we do with it? So we had it sitting there. We transitioned over to VX Rails, which we really like a lot. But then we own the VBlock. Why don't we do something with it? So Julian suggested that maybe we put that off-site to get us into a disaster recovery situation so that we can get everything that we have on-prem someplace besides in our building. We're almost there. Hopefully in a couple months, if we talk again about that, we've got that accomplished and those things are being backed up someplace else. But that's kind of how we got where we are. So
yeah, it's a great story and it's a great journey. And it's really been fun having you check back in with us over the time too. I think you were very prescient in 2019 doing the VDI on the VX Rail, but should I let Julian talk about that one?
Certainly.
Yeah, so we have actually we have 2 different clusters of VX Rail. So we have our main production cluster that we moved all of our production off of the VBlock, and that's been great. So we've been really, downsizing our team and be able to focus on other things, not managing hardware and things like that. Even though with the VBlock, we were able to start that journey, but going to VxRail, we really saw a big increase in that. But also our other clusters of VDI environment, it's a 12 node VDI environment, and it can support 800 VDI sessions with NVIDIA graphic cards resources for students. And we actually implemented right before COVID, the summer before COVID started. So the value of VDI just exploded during COVID for us. We never saw that coming. And really that kind of pushed our teachers to see the benefit of VDI and really, in the back end for us, what VxRail can provide in when you have to switch into a virtual learning environment.
Yeah, I mean, I flew in the Air Force for 8 years, and we had a little saying that I'll take luck over skill any day, because if you need luck to keep you alive and it keeps you alive, that's great. If you guys got lucky and timed it right before COVID and we're really ready for that, that's fantastic. So good deal there. The conversation today is on DevOps and infrastructure. Julian, you're the DevOps manager. We talked a little earlier about when you guys kind of took on the DevOps philosophy or methodology. So that actually started back when you moved to your VBlock. We've got some polls here. I'll ask you, are you guys working, where are you on the Kubernetes containers journey?
But we know about it. Let's say that.
Yeah.
I have one person's a bit passionate about it. As far as he pays attention, brings articles to me. Hey, you need to attend this webinar or go listen to this recording. We've had conversations, but that's about as far as we've got, just simply because, we have a minimum amount of people. Yep. And we don't have all the funding in the world because we're a public institution. And unfortunately, we can't focus on it today. But I keep getting a tickle back here. Like, we need to pay attention to this. We need to look at what this can do for us to, help us manage what we're doing and secure what we're doing better than we are. We can't do it today, but hopefully we'll be able to get there in the future.
Yeah, Sharon, I think it was interesting. Julian reminded me prior to the call that DevOps is equally about the operating model. It's not just about, are you pursuing Kubernetes, right? And Julian, maybe if you can provide a little bit of insight in terms of the approach that you've had. You had mentioned also a little bit some of the new management structure or just the natural attrition of things. If you can just maybe elaborate on that for some of the community, I think it would be helpful to the insight in terms of where you're at in that, staging of DevOps.
Yeah, no, actually, kind of to what you just said. So when I actually got my job, Sharon and I were looking at what my title would be. And that's kind of where we started into, okay, it doesn't make sense anymore to have a server manager, kind of that traditional, really now we're talking about DevOps. And so that's really how my title came. And that's kind of, I think where, with the VBlock, our journey started. And it really transformed the way we operate from a data center perspective is, we had networking teams, we had a server team, and then, we have our development team still, but we're all together in one area. Before we were all separated by buildings, different, parts of the building even, but now our infrastructure teams really sit together with our development team. So they have a question, they can ask us, and we can ask them like, hey, we're seeing something weird, or they have questions for us. So really that collaboration, working together and, really integrating our network team with our server team. And that's really what we saw kind of starting in the VBlock, but really when we got to VxRail, we really saw that it didn't make sense anymore to have a separate network team, because those two teams need to be so tightly integrated to work together and to have that understanding that I need my person that's managing that switch. He or she needs to understand what VxRail does and how it operates, from updating switches to updating VxRail. It kind of really, and so both teams have to understand each other. And so now we really have a really integrated group and have some really great conversations.
Oh, that's great. And excellent insight, because it is so much about that, the way that the teams work together, that sets up that future foundation for success as Kubernetes, as container-based application workloads come into the forefront. And I think it's interesting with the poll responses that are coming back in, just how many of our customers haven't standardized on one particular Kubernetes vendor, right? They're using multiple, whether that was by design or whether that was by the nature of developers just going out and grabbing whichever one they could use a credit card to get through some of these hyperscalers. And now the strategy is, how do you figure out how to standardize on some of that approach, right? And I think you guys are set up well. As we were talking, Sharon's got the one employee that's constantly knocking on the door. Hey, how about this? How about this? I think it sets those conversations for what does become the priority in that selection when the time comes for which one of those Kubernetes distributions and providers you really want to go with. Sharon, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that any with the conversations that you're having.
Yeah, well, we have spent a lot of years, and I've been here going on 24 years now. It was the wild, wild west for a while. People were just kind of doing whatever they felt like doing. And it's, as the years have gone by, that model doesn't work, right? You can't have a server here and a server there and hope the heck that it works together. So, just by the way, we've got more things to do, right? Technology's expanded something. Like, it's amazing how much more we're doing now than we ever had before. There's a Chromebook in every child's hand. Everybody has a computer on their desk. That wasn't always the case. They're all Windows machines for the most part, not necessarily Apple or Macs. But we've been able to consolidate, and we've been able to do a lot more with less people. Because as people leave, we have to look at those positions and decide, do we still need that position? Because we're constantly in a cost-cutting situation.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do more with less. So our infrastructure group is only 3 people.
Yeah.
But because we have the vBlock, the VxRails, and those things, and help from Dell, we certainly can manage that fairly well. Do they go a little crazy sometimes? Yes. But we continue to have those conversations. Nobody can go out and buy Kubernetes. That's not something anybody has the option to do, and they know they better not try to go do that without a lot of conversation, without a project plan. How does this affect what we're doing? What's the long picture? Like today I could do it, but does this make sense to go this way? Should I go that way? So, and I hope I answered your question.
No, it did. And I think there's a number of comments in chat where folks are at that similar stage in their journey, right? They haven't started down that path yet. And they just, are needing just perspective of others that might be in a similar stage. So I think it's excellent. And that you're doing it with such a small staff as well, that's supporting so many of your teachers and sites. I think that provides an interesting perspective, that it doesn't have to be a huge worldwide conglomerate that's going down this path, right? It's even those smaller IT enterprises can be going down this journey through setting that right DevOps model for how the teams work together, as well as how you want to have that very well thought out strategic approach to implementing container-based workloads in the future. Dave, you're on mute.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Yeah, just, it's interesting. We've got some great stuff in chat. I pushed the poll forward because we were reminded in the first poll that we didn't have a 0 answer, and you just hit on it, but there's a lot here going on where people really haven't gone down that Kubernetes path yet. But to that point, that doesn't mean that you can't have a DevOps methodology. And Nancy, I'm sorry, I stepped on top of you there.
Oh, no, it's quite all right. I think I was just going to be commenting on the results of the poll itself. And you said that people hadn't gone down this path yet. One of the key things that I just wanted to bring back with the idea of, hey, we introduced these DevOps ready platforms. If you've got a VxRail in-house, if you've got a Flex in-house, if you've got a PowerStore X in-house, whatever the case might be, you've got a DevOps ready platform, right? It's essentially a VM that you can then try that out on. And you could run multiple different ones if you wanted to just understand if you want to do Red Hat or you want to do Tanzu or whatever the case might be. When the time comes, if you have that infrastructure in there, you have the infrastructure, to run your Kubernetes orchestration or even just to do a test bed. So I think that that's just an interesting thing because there's a lot of folks that haven't started yet, but I'm going to make an assumption they're here on this call. They've probably got one of those, platforms in-house.
Or they're interested in learning more and testing the waters. So absolutely.
Absolutely.
Hey, did you guys see, I saw something flash through about how come there aren't any DevOps engineers? I need some. Any thoughts on that?
I'll go with, okay, define the DevOps engineer, right? Because there's so many different, like, what does it really mean? What's a DevOps team? Is it really just that they follow DevOps methodology, or is it, really certain functionality? I think that's an interesting discussion. I think for Sharon and Julian and even Bill, it's like, sometimes if you're looking for that specific thing, I don't know if that specific thing exists, but what are the skill sets you're really looking for?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have trouble just hiring techs and buildings right now, right? So I can't imagine somebody with a higher skill set like a DevOps engineer. I can't even fathom what we would have to go through to search for somebody that would have skills they walk in the door with that could help us. That's got to be very difficult. And how do you define it? Like, what do you want those people to do? Is that a team of 10 people? Is that a team of one person? I think that would be our challenge for sure, because we obviously wouldn't be able to hire 10 people to do a project unless it was consulting. So, yeah. And when you say DevOps, again, I have two sons and that work in technology as well, and they have some sort of titles like this. And I'm like, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, they don't do anything near what Julian's doing, but they're doing DevOps work, just not the same kind of thing he's doing. So,
Julian, what lessons learned would you share with members who might not have quite adopted the organizational structure or the philosophy to take full advantage of the infrastructure that you're using, like, your VxRail, your HCI? We were talking a little earlier about an example I heard of this morning where a large customer went and bought a bunch of VxRail, and they said they tried to up level their folks up the stack, and they found that didn't work. So they went back to more of a traditional siloed management approach. And it seems to me like that you're missing, that might incrementally make your infrastructure better, but you're leaving so much on the table as to what you can truly deliver and bring to bear.
Yeah, no, I mean, when we bought the V block at first, we started a separate network team, and the manager of that, was very hesitant of he was looking at from his network perspective, you're plugging something in that I'm not familiar with, something that's showed up, integrated, all set up, and you basically just plug it in, right? So it took a while to change that mentality, but also when we didn't have, the change in our kind of revamped our teams and kind of, integrated them. Now we see the workflow just way more easier, and our teams to understand from a networking perspective, updating a data center and that doesn't matter if you're talking about switches or VxRail or, vBlock or your storage, whatever, those teams need to be on the same page, especially when you're talking about uptime, right? So, sometimes, especially when we're talking about school districts, you don't think, okay, school goes 8 hours a day, that we have to be up 8 hours a day. I would tell you, we're a 24/7 operation. There's parents, there's students now who do homework in the middle of the night at 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and they
Wow.
expect our services to be available. So it's very crucial now as we have, adopted these technologies, because we can do that. We can keep our uptime at almost 100% because of the hardware, the infrastructure we have put in place to accomplish that. And that I don't have to be up 24/7 either, especially with the team we have. But it really, I don't think we could be there today if we hadn't implemented the stuff we did and made the changes within our group to do that, to work together, as a group. So I think that's the biggest change we saw, is how to work together and really understand each other's technologies, so that, I can, Sharon and I can, talk to upper management or leadership in the district and say, we can provide the service with that much of guaranteed of uptime to our students and staff and parents.
Sharon and
Yeah.
Julian, this might be, sorry, Sharon, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I want to blow my horn a little bit. So as Julian was talking
Please
about, the teams are working together. Part of, and some of this was natural changes as people left. We had manager over this, manager over that, manager over that. And we weren't really, people weren't communicating very well. Weren't on the same page. A lot of angry people. Well, I'm in charge of all that now. Every one of those people reports to me. All those groups report to me. So it's my job to make sure that Julian's not going to take down all the servers and the developers have a deadline to get to, or that it's going to affect, because there's a basketball game tonight, we can't be out of the internet. And so it naturally happened, and it made sense to get everybody under one person, to make sure that the spokes and the wheels are all going in the same direction. Everybody's, I don't know, well, the things singing from the same page, in the hymnal or whatever you want to call it. But by having all of them under me, I have meetings with them constantly to keep them collaborating. And I think that works really well in our environment. And we've done that since, I think 2014 was when I got all of that work. So
Sharon,
So Sharon, this,
sorry, Bill, just to piggyback on that, how did you did you just know that that's the way it needed to be and you advocated for it? How would other people, other members who might be seeing that that's what needs to be done, what would you recommend they do to help drive that through if they're running into someone who, maybe doesn't get the philosophy and is a bit of a roadblock in the way or an obstacle? Their thoughts to share there?
well, yeah, to some extent, you have to step up and say, hey, listen, I don't say it like that, please. Can we look at how we can collaborate better? Because, we're not talking to each other and we're not agreeing on things. That means we have to take it up to the CIO, who really has better things to do than that. And so, like, what does that look like? And as people started leaving, I was part of the manager group that said, hey, what does this look like? Do we hire another manager over this group, or do we hire other people to do other things and put those people under, like, for example, me? So, some of it happened naturally. Some of it happened because I was part of conversations about this sort of thing. It's like, I can take that on. That's fine. I can take that on. I can manage this. That's one thing I'm very good at. I can't talk all the technical stuff like Julian does, but we can certainly get people to collaborate. And then if there has to be a decision, like person one and person two don't like each other, they're not going to decide to agree on something, then that's me. I get to say, hey, I listened to both of you. This is what we're doing. And it may be a compromise, or it may be what one or two wants. So that's what I would recommend. That's what worked here.
I think that's great. That's, it also sounds like strong, open-minded leadership really helps drive the transformation. Bill, I stepped on you. I apologize for that, but these are points that keep coming up with the user group meetings, and I think certainly when we surveyed members this year, the people side of IT is a key topic that it sounds like members want to hear more about. So I do appreciate your feedback there, Sharon and Julian. The other thing, Bill, I'd love to dig more into what makes what defines a DevOps team and everything. So yeah. I'll let you go.
So Sharon, this might be a little bit more steered to your domain than Julian's, because it sounds like everybody's rolling up to you. And as we were prepping for this, you mentioned you've got developers that are located worldwide, right? And how do you instill the right CI/CD methodology with those developers and the governance back to Julian's infrastructure teams, such that they're not going off and doing something without pulling him in? Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that side of things? And don't want to take you into a place that might be IP or anything like that, but I think that's the next step that most people are not getting to in their pursuit of these DevOps models. How do you get that right integration of those two groups?
It's been a fun journey, let me say that. A lot of people come kicking and screaming into this journey, right? Because I started out as a developer before I was at Parkway. When I first started here, that's kind of what I was watching over. Is just we had an AS400 and we had 3 developers at the time, and we were writing a lot of code, and that's was our job. Well, a lot of things have transitioned since then. We don't have the 400, and we don't write programs like that anymore. But it's my responsibility to make sure that what they're doing and what Julian's doing works together. So they are all sitting right outside my office. There's 8 cubes, and that's where all these people sit. The 3 people on the infrastructure team and the 5 developers are all there together. You can't hardly not have conversations because you're passing them every day, right? And if there's something I'm finding or something one of them brings to me, I can go out to this group and say, hey, this is what this looks like. Who's doing this? What are we doing? And put some structures in place so that we don't go off the reservation trying to do anything. Now, most of my developers are wiser. They've been around a while. They're not likely to do that. I have one that would like to, but I think most of them are not likely to go off and try a whole gob of different things. They're focused on getting what they need to do done without adding a bunch of other work to their workload, because we have plenty to do for sure. So, I mean, that's how it works in our environment. I don't know if that would work well everywhere else, but
I heard 3 things as you described that, Sharon. There's communication, almost a forced communication by the proximity, the collaboration that then drives, and that there's some form of a governance checkoff, if you will, to make sure that things aren't being done before all parties have had that right concurrence level in the relationship. So that to me, that's showcasing the best of what CI/CD and DevOps is really intended to be in the pursuit of moving things forward. Nancy, I don't know if you want to chime in or add anything to this or ask a question.
Well, what's interesting is I was going to talk a little bit about the DevOps team, but it's just a thought that came up. When you look at some of these container orchestration solutions, and I'll go to Tanzu in particular, because when Tanzu was announced, obviously we were very close to that with VMware. And there was always this very interesting diagram in their marketing slides where they had the IT infrastructure person down in one corner and they had the developer up in the other corner. And that what Tanzu actually did was gave both access into the infrastructure for their own particular needs. Whereas the developers might come in through APIs, but they would be able to configure their own resources and grab resources for themselves as they needed it on demand. But the IT person is always going to be able to have, a view into what's happening. And that's kind of the beauty of that solution. Today, and maybe this is to Julian, how do you serve those developers when they need additional resources? How quickly can you react to their needs? And what's that interface today if you're not necessarily using a container orchestration platform?
Usually they'll give us, some kind of monitoring tools that they use from kind of an application perspective. And usually we can turn around pretty quickly on, if we identify needs more resources added. Usually within, that night, if we can safely do a quick outage, if that's what's needed. Usually within a 24-hour turnaround time, it's usually what we like to do, unless it would affect more than one thing, then we will be waiting till the weekend. But usually, like Sharon said, we sit so close by. So usually when they notice something, they turn around pretty quickly and say, hey, can one of you guys take a look at this with us? And we'll take a look at it together and then, make the adjustments as needed. So we have that pretty good relationship going, I think, kind of like to joke around and, do work together when we need to.
Yeah, no, that's great that you have that and you can turn that around that quickly. Obviously, you're a smaller team and probably have that communication. I think in large organizations, that's one of the reasons that those orchestration platforms are very important to them, because otherwise it can delay a lot of the implementation. So I was just curious on that. But the other area that we were talking about, sorry, just go first. I just got a ping on something else. So Bill, can you talk a little bit about how easy it would be to deploy those container orchestration platforms?
Yeah, I think one of the nice things, and Julian and Sharon are well down the path with what they're doing with some of the more virtualized type workload set. The nice thing with most of these Kubernetes distributions is there's a standard set of VMs that you're going to deploy that are going to have a fixed set of requirements, and they can be running right alongside those traditional virtualized applications. So now it's just a matter of sizing the resource pools that are going to be needed for those containers. And quite honestly, it's one of the reasons why you don't see complex design sizing guides and architectural details when it comes to deploying these with VxRail and some of our HCI offerings, because these Kubernetes distributions have just made it so simple to follow the repeat of here's what you need to set up that orchestration framework within their environments, right? And we've seen this now with EKS Anywhere, the work that we did with Amazon late last summer, recently with SUSE Rancher, new solution brief out on that. We followed the off-the-shelf guidance. There was no need to deviate from that. We're running it right alongside the same workloads. Our solution center was great. They actually had that running on the same exact cluster that they had the EKS Anywhere running. So here they've got two different Kubernetes platforms running on the same cluster. Not going to say that that's necessarily a best practice, mind you, but that is something that can be done with these if you're trying to make that choice and selection in terms of where you want to standardize in your approach to Kubernetes. And VMware is great with that, with their CSI driver that's just built right into vSphere, so that you can use any of those Kubernetes distributions that are based on the open source upstream Kubernetes. And we see very similar, by the way, and I'll give nod to the other products in the portfolio. Obviously, I have a lot of focus on VxRail, but when they have their cloud native storage drivers and CSI drivers that they can utilize from the storage layer up, they've got that same type of benefit where you can run any of those upstream Kubernetes variants that might be a best fit for our customers. So Sharon and Julian, they're going to have really the world is their oyster. It's a matter of deciding what is the right one for them, especially if they've got a multi-cloud approach now. And I don't know, Sharon, Julian, if you want to elaborate on this, we didn't talk about it. If they've started to go down a path with Amazon, for example, for their cloud providing, they could choose EKS Anywhere to have a consistent Kubernetes framework for their on-prem as well as what they're doing now in the cloud. And that's really the approach that we're trying to bring with this recent DevOps ready platform integrations that we had announced yesterday.
Real quick, Sharon, Julian, being a school system, I know we've spoken in the past, you've got huge privacy and data control mandates. Where are you with multi-cloud, or are you using cloud providers? Are you strictly on-prem? How do you guys have to operate?
So from a server and application perspective, it's all mostly on-prem. Some of the third-party stuff, that's like some of the things that we can push third-party offsite, where the vendor can host it. Some of that, we're taking some of that approach. But if it's something, mainly managed stuff in-house, especially around data privacy and stuff like that, and around cybersecurity, it's been in the news quite a bit lately, and especially around us. School districts are a really big target right now for data because of the clean student data we have. I think I saw a report that came out from Homeland Security recently that, one's a clean student data is worth around $250. So if I was having 18,000, we're definitely taking really big precautions. Just over the last couple of months, school districts around our area has just been getting hit one after each other. So we're taking a really, being really cautious right now and taking a lot of extra steps to ensure kind of our data privacy. And that's kind of where we're really like, about the cloud, like, what does that look like and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think security is one of those biggest bucket items that we see when it comes to multi-cloud. And you're hitting on, I think, one of the core concerns that folks have when it comes to choosing on-prem is how do you control that security? When you go to some of these hyperscalers, you're putting your fate in their hands. So I think it's a very sound strategy that you've got there with Julian.
I think one of the other things that I wanted to add, and kind of what goes with Kubernetes and your integrations, or somebody just looking at hybrid converge, one of the biggest things that we really liked about, with the vBlock and then now with VxRail is the stuff that's been pre-tested. So, like you're choosing a product that Dell did the pre-testing for you, that this is product's going to work. And that's especially why we went to VMware Horizon when we did VDI. We had VDI prior, and we went away from that vendor just to get that integration. And when I call support, I'm not having to go, well, you need to talk back to your VDI vendor, or I'm talking to somebody from VMware, and it's a VMware product all the way around. And that's from a support perspective and how we've been able to downsize our teams. That's been a huge asset for us. And I think Sharon kind of mentioned that earlier. We don't want to call these vendors and Creatified, but it's really been, one console. We can put in a ticket for all these different support things. And if we go down the route, when we go look at, okay, we're going to add this software. Well, we would really look at what's the integration, and, does VMware or Dell offer, what we're looking for, just because I already have that relationship, I already have that built. So I don't want to build that if I don't need to, if I can go with the same vendor. And that's been a huge asset to us. I just kind of wanted to mention that. And so if you're looking at, Go and containers and stuff, that would be something that I would, from my perspective, look at, because I don't want to go with somebody else that, okay, now has that been pre-tested? I rely on somebody else to do that for me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Julian. That's wonderful words. We hear it a lot from members. It's glad there will always be hiccups, but it's fantastic to hear that. Thank you so much. On that wonderful note, we can land this plane and give folks a few minutes back to their day. Sharon and Julian, thank you so much for co-hosting with us today. It's been a fantastic conversation. It's a great opportunity to hear about your journey. It's really neat to see it over time. Thanks for being such great members and for really being willing to share your experience with members. I think there's a lot of growth and a lot of great benefit that comes from that. Bill and Nancy, thank you so much for joining. It's been fantastic to kick the year off with this. These are great folks. Thanks for attending with us. We really look forward to seeing you in person, and hopefully that will be at DTW. So mark your calendars. I think there's an early bird registration alumni thing that ends the 31st of January. I saw that. It looks really cool. I don't get to benefit from it, but maybe you can. So if you're planning on being in Las Vegas with DTW, check out the website and see if you can get that alumni early bird benefit. If not, you can still get an early bird benefit by February, I think. So the window's closing, but do that. Fingers crossed we'll be there in person. We're going to have a VR lounge event in March. So keep your calendars marked for that. And we'll be back with another community hour in February, February 17th. So please look for that. In the meantime, if you've got ways that we can make this better, please let us know at memberservices@convergeusergroup.com. Jenny, are you out there?
Yes, I am. Thank you everyone for joining. Like David said,
I'm hoping you're out there, and I'm gonna hand it over. I think I've got some failed speakers
could
here,
hear her.
so
Can
I
you
will
hear
talk
me?
to folks. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you very much.
Dave might be on a frozen screen.
All
Go ahead
right.
and wrap it up, Jenny.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thanks,
Jenny.
everyone.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
well, good. Okay, awesome, y'all. Well, really, just to add on to David, I want to thank the sponsors, Dell Technologies and VMware. And we do have a survey that I have attached in the chat. So again, thank you for joining today. Thank you to the speakers, and we will see you again soon.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.